Obi-Wan didn't protect Luke, he was waiting for him to fail. Obi-Wan's exile on Tatooine is usually framed as guardianship, watching over Luke, keeping him safe, waiting for the right moment. But Obi-Wan doesn't intervene when Luke's aunt and uncle are murdered. He doesn't train Luke early. He doesn't even introduce himself until Luke is already broken enough to leave. That timing matters. Because Obi-Wan had already failed one chosen one, and the consequences were catastrophic. Anakin wasn't corrupted by lack of power, he was corrupted by attachment, expectation, and belief that he had to matter. Luke grows up with none of that. No destiny, no Jedi upbringing, no sense that he's important. Obi-Wan lets Luke live a small, frustrated, anonymous life, because that's the only variable that wasn't tested with Anakin. When Obi-Wan finally steps in, it's not because Luke is ready. It's because Luke has lost everything except his moral center. And that reframes Obi-Wan's guilt. He isn't protecting Luke from the galaxy. He's protecting the galaxy from another Anakin, which makes Obi-Wan's final act even darker. He doesn't sacrifice himself just to inspire Luke. He removes himself as an authority figure before Luke can become dependent. The exact mistake that helped destroy Anakin. Luke isn't guided into heroism, he's abandoned into it. Obi-Wan doesn't trust himself to raise another chosen one, so he creates conditions where Luke has to choose goodness without guidance. And if Luke had failed, Obi-Wan would have stayed a ghost on Tatooine, knowing the galaxy deserved whatever came next. Boba Fett was never feared for his skill. He was feared for his restraint. Boba Fett's reputation is built almost entirely on implication. He doesn't talk much, he doesn't posture, and in the original trilogy, he doesn't actually do much on screen. Yet Darth Vader singles him out. No disintegrations. That line isn't a warning to a reckless hunter. It's a reminder to someone known for ending things permanently. The key detail is what Boba doesn't do. He tracks Han Solo without force, armies, or authority. He captures targets alive when killing them would be easier. And when given power, freezing someone in carbonite, he treats it like routine, not spectacle. That suggests experience, not bravado. But here's the tragic part. Boba Fett isn't restrained because he's merciful. He's restrained because he's already learned where excess violence leads. Boba grows up watching his father die in front of him, not in chaos, but in a clean, ceremonial execution during a civilized war. That moment teaches him something precise. Power doesn't come from rage. It comes from control. So he builds a reputation where violence is implied, not performed. That makes him useful. It also makes him disposable. The moment Boba loses control, one misstep, one chaotic fight, he's gone. No speech, no redemption, just swallowed by the thing he avoided becoming, which reframes his death. Boba Fett doesn't die because he's careless. He dies because the galaxy never allowed him to be anything but controlled. The moment restraint fails him, the myth collapses. Not because he wasn't dangerous, because he was only allowed to be dangerous in moderation. Captain Phasma was actively sabotaging the First Order from the inside. Phasma is remembered as wasted potential, but her on-screen decisions line up too cleanly to be incompetence. When Starkiller Base is attacked, Phasma doesn't resist. She disables the shields immediately, even though her armor, training, and authority put her in a position to delay, escape, or trigger countermeasures. She doesn't. That choice alone costs the First Order its greatest weapon. Later, when she's confronted again, she doesn't call for backup. She fights Finn one-on-one in a collapsing environment, knowing that any prolonged engagement draws attention she doesn't want. Because Phasma isn't trying to win. She's trying to survive while causing damage. Look at her background. Phasma comes from a world where loyalty gets you killed. Survival comes from adaptability. Allegiance is temporary. She doesn't believe in causes, only outcomes. So when the First Order rises, she joins it not as a true believer, but as an opportunist, embedded in a system she knows will eventually eat itself. Every critical moment she's present for ends badly for the First Order. Shields fall, bases collapse, elite troops die, and Phasma walks away until she can't. Her final fight isn't about honor or revenge, it's exposure. Finn calls her out in front of her troops, not for cruelty, but for cowardice. That's the one thing Phasma can't survive. Once her image cracks, her usefulness ends. And in an organization built on fear and image, being seen as self-interested is the only unforgivable sin. Phasma isn't killed by Finn, she's executed by the First Order's own logic. She didn't fail the regime. She played it until it turned on her. Mace Windu was winning, and that's why. Anakin had no choice. The fight in Palpatine's office is usually framed as Anakin's failure, but the mechanics of the scene suggest something worse. Mace Windu doesn't just survive. He dismantles Palpatine's defense, disarms him, and forces him into a position where the Sith stops attacking and starts pleading. That's not deception yet. That's defeat. Palpatine's lightning rebounds because Windu is actively overpowering him. The window shatters, the environment collapses, and the fight becomes unstable. Not because the Sith planned it, but because he's losing control, which creates the real trap. If Mace kills Palpatine, the Jedi execute a democratically elected leader without trial. If he doesn't, Palpatine escapes, and the Jedi are finished anyway. Palpatine didn't lure Mace there to win the duel. He lured him there to force Anakin's intervention. The moment Anakin enters, the outcome becomes binary. If Anakin sides with Mace, the Republic collapses immediately into civil war, with Anakin branded as a traitor who helped assassinate the Chancellor. If Anakin sides with Palpatine, the Jedi die quietly and legally. That means Anakin's choice isn't moral, it's logistical. Windu isn't asking Anakin to do the right thing. He's asking him to take responsibility for destabilizing the galaxy overnight, which reframes the tragedy. Mace Windu doesn't lose because he's arrogant. He loses because he's correct too late. And Anakin doesn't fall because he's weak. He falls because in that moment, every possible future requires him to destroy something he loves. The duel ends not with betrayal, but with containment. The Jedi lose, not because Palpatine outplayed them in combat, but because he designed a fight where winning still meant losing. Not trying to capture him. The duel on Cloud City is usually framed as Vader hunting Luke, but the way Vader fights doesn't match that goal. He never goes for killing blows. He doesn't overwhelm Luke with the Force immediately. And he spends most of the fight reacting, not pressing. Vader controls the environment instead of Luke. He throws objects, he seals doors, he cuts off exits. Every move funnels Luke deeper into the station rather than ending the fight quickly. That's not pursuit, that's assessment. When Vader disarms Luke, he doesn't finish him, he escalates psychologically instead, revealing the truth about Luke's parentage mid-fight, the worst possible time if your goal is compliance or capture, unless emotional collapse is the point. Vader isn't testing Luke's strength. He's testing whether Luke will become him. Will Luke fight harder when cornered? Will he embrace rage when he's losing? Will he choose power over escape? Luke fails the test by refusing to finish the fight. He drops his weapon and chooses death over becoming what Vader is. That's the moment the duel actually ends. Vader doesn't react with anger. He reacts with certainty. Because Luke didn't prove he was strong enough to rule the galaxy. He proved he was strong enough to survive it without becoming a monster, which explains Vader's next move. He doesn't kill Luke. He doesn't chase him. He lets him fall, not because Luke lost, but because Luke passed. Yoda didn't lose to Sidious. He abandoned the war on purpose. Yoda's duel with Palpatine is usually remembered as a draw, but the fight doesn't end because Yoda is defeated. It ends because Yoda disengages. Watch the mechanics. Yoda adapts to Sidious lightning, matches him in speed, survives the Senate chamber collapse, and regains his footing after the final blast. Palpatine retreats. He doesn't pursue. That's not victory behavior. What changes isn't the fight. It's Yoda's assessment of the war. Up until that moment, the Jedi are still fighting to win. After it, Yoda stops trying to defeat the Sith directly, because the duel reveals something catastrophic. Palpatine isn't just powerful, he's structurally unbeatable within the current system. He controls the military, the law, the narrative, and now Anakin. Killing him doesn't end the Empire. It creates a martyr and accelerates collapse. So Yoda makes a tactical decision, not a spiritual one. He withdraws, not to survive, but to deny Palpatine the kind of enemy that would legitimize his rule. If Yoda continues fighting openly, the Empire has a war to rally around. A visible Jedi resistance justifies endless militarization, but if the Jedi vanish, the Empire has no external threat, only internal decay, which reframes Yoda's exile. Dagobah isn't hiding, it's strategic absence. By removing himself, Yoda forces the Empire into overreach. No grand Jedi war. No glorious final stand. Just occupation, fear, and rot. And the result? The Empire collapses from the inside, not the battlefield. Yoda doesn't change the war by winning it, he changes it by making it unwinnable for both sides. The Jedi don't return as soldiers, they return as symbols, decades later, when the system is already hollow. Yoda didn't lose the duel. He ended the war by refusing to keep playing it.